Hello and welcome to AXSchat. Today we have Janice Valentine from Access Dublin, one of the first hackathons on accessibility that have been done in Europe. Janice has been part of the AXSchat community for quite some time, so we're really excited to have her today. So welcome to AXSchat, Janice.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here, and it's great to meet you, Deborah, properly, and
Yes.
see you again, Antonio. So yeah, it's great. Thank you so much. Feel very privileged and humbled to be in your company.
Well, we're excited to have you, and we want to say happy Good Friday to everybody. And also, yes, and mention that Neil is taking the day off, and his wife said, no working, Neil.
Fair enough.
So, and Antonio, you're joining us from Portugal today.
Yes,
and then, of course, yep, and Janice is joining us from Ireland, and I'm in Virginia again. So, yeah, welcome, Janice. Welcome.
Thank you.
I met you several in the last couple of years, and you mentioned, I know a little bit about your story, how you get attention into the topic of accessibility, but as you know, most of our audience doesn't know about that. So can you tell us a little bit about your story and what motivated you to be to organize an hackathon and be so passionate about inclusion and accessibility?
Yeah, it's funny because I assume everybody knows my story by now, and I kind of, when I'm talking about where we are now in Hack Access, I kind of leave out some important details. So you're right to actually bring me back to the very beginning. So basically, my experience of disability, accessibility, comes from my family experience. I had a brother with muscular dystrophy. And I suppose what the key thing for me about disability is the most difficult part of it maybe would be the exclusion part and the attitudinal part and the cultural part. So what I mean by that is he went into a wheelchair when he was 11, and looking back, I can see how people viewed him differently, things like him not being addressed individually, us being asked, how is he? And, conversations being had around him. That's kind of one example, which used to obviously drive him mad. And also, a lack of the opportunity part of it. So at the point that he was leaving school, there was a big battle to support his transition into the real world. And now really, I'm talking about this. It was my mom who was really the battler, I would say. So my experience of disability is around these points. And, he obviously with muscular dystrophy, your lifespan is cut short. So that was an added difficulty we had to bear. But we bared it by basically living in the moment. And my family, I think my parents had an amazing attitude. He wasn't treated any differently. The wheelchair tool, as kids, he was 3 years younger. So it was actually an exciting thing. This thing came into our lives. And then when it became an electric wheelchair, that was really cool. And the other thing I should say about my brother, he was really interested in technology. He was a gamer. He was a maker. He was the one who facilitated the desktop computer coming into the family. He was the only one who could work it. So this is my understanding. I really saw. It was lucky that was the case because he couldn't go out and play football with my other brother. So that was all a positive thing. We saw the positives in the situation. And so none of us ever felt sorry for him, and he didn't feel sorry for himself. So having that, and he was quite an ambitious person, quite a competitive, really a cool guy, and for that to be such a difficulty, finding a place to work, finding that support. And then when it came time, he moved out. And, these things to a person who is disabled by the environment, they are like such crucial things. And I can look back and know that he lived as full a life but it was hard, you know, and sometimes I think had it not been for my mom, she's a very persistent, I think that's where I got my organization ability. He was the organizer of the house. But I know that at a point where she was really struggling to get it, I think you get certain hours that a person can use for a personal assistant. That was one of the matters. And to get that right, you know, I think it actually took her to break down and cry on the phone to some official. Now that shouldn't be the case. So those are the kinds of things that, you know, you have to deal with. And I suppose there's all sorts of reasons why that is the case. So those are the kinds of challenges. But so for me, I suppose it was really important when we were growing up, if there ever was a time that he felt a bit, oh God, you know, I suppose I was that coaching one. I would kind of talk to him about, oh, yeah, we could do this together. And, you know, I always had ideas that I'd like to set up a business of some sort. And because I'm technically challenged, not, it's like, you know, you can help me doing this thing. So I kind of always had that thing in my mind. I always thought that I wanted to do something, never knew what exactly that was. So fast forward, after the time that he passed away, obviously that was very difficult. And I think that really did cause me to kind of evaluate my life, you know. I was working in London. I was living quite a fast life, working in banking. And yeah, I was evaluating. I was really kind of thinking, I need more meaning, more purpose. Work was a way I thought I could do that. So I ended up coming home and found myself in the startup community. And the thing I thought about entrepreneurship is that it offered people like me and other people who were really feeling a bit suffocated by the rat race and also the rigidity of the corporate world. It offered people like us a way out and a way to have much more autonomy and purpose in our work. And I took a real interest in, I suppose, psychology and human behavior at the time that I had that loss to help me overcome it. So I placed a great value in that. So I was kind of trying to figure out, okay, so how can I bring all these things together? And, you know, I went out onto the startup community because I saw great power in that. And very, very early on, I recognized a few things about the startup community. One, yes, great talent, great power in that for getting things done. I love the attitude, proactiveness, the energy. And when you bring all that together, I saw that had tremendous potential to make the world a better place. However, I wasn't seeing a lot of solutions that were about that. I saw the energy and the skill. And it was in my first Google Startup Weekend. And I was, you know, really excited to be there. And saw that this is the community that I saw myself in. But after, you know, you go through all the various ideas that were very similar. And I also found that the people were quite similar. You know, there wasn't that much cultural diversity. But nobody was talking about kind of the problems that I was interested in, like socially or environmental problems, basically anything to do with the various challenges that the world is facing. And then literally an idea just popped into my head. I was like, oh, you know, I'd love to do something like this. And I'd love to do it for disability. I'd love to do it, first of all, I thought of Stephen. And I thought, God, he would have loved this. And I think that's where the diversity, I didn't see people like him. But I thought, God, this would be something he could have done, you know? And he would have loved it. And then, of course, my jotting down in my notebook ended up with a stream of ideas, and it was about, you know, hackathon, all about wheelchairs, how to give that person additional powers, you know. And then that literally stayed in that notebook for about 1.5 years, 2 years, because I thought, there's no way, how could I make anything like that happen, you know? And well, obviously I did. But I think I'm waffling now, I'm going on now. But I think that what I really recognize about, you know, innovation and the startup community, it was the positive focus, the sense of possibility. And I think from my experience of disability, that's not necessarily the culture that surrounds the system, because although my family were very positive, they didn't actually engage much in the disability system because it was so kind of negative and sad, and people, and that wasn't very helpful, so I think it's kind of trying to shift that conversation and look at the positive and look at what people can do. And then, obviously there's various challenges that we need to overcome. And I suppose that's what I saw in the startup community, the ability to use innovation, to use the skills and talents of those people to actually make changes in the system,
So let's talk a little bit about the hackathon. So I know there are hackathons happening all over the world, but this was a hackathon specifically about accessibility. So how it, and I know that Antonio probably has a question too, but so, when did y'all have the hackathon? I know that you had corporate sponsors at the time. You're looking for corporate sponsors for the one that you're going to have in Dublin, I believe, in November. Yeah. But so tell us a little bit more about how this particular hackathon, how did the day evolve? Was it more than one day?
Yeah. So basically, it's a 3-day event. And what I wanted to do with this hackathon was ensure that it was really framed in the right way, that everybody knew this wasn't necessarily a hackathon to kind of just introduce people to the startup community. We really had a vision. You're coming to this because you're helping us create an inclusive city. So that was a really important part of it. And as such, we needed to make sure we paid attention to the, education piece. So how that happened, so there's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. In our first event, we had an immersion separate. But I'll focus on last year because last year really worked well. We have an immersion part of the evening on the introduction. So people will sign up, and we have disability experts. So they share their challenges. And then we have a facilitated ideation, which is, again, I think a little bit different in that we have the challenges set up and we kind of mix people up. So we have designers, engineers, technologists, innovators. We kind of group them and separate them so that every team has a mixed skill set, which is really important. So that's a really important to really bring people in from those disability people organizations, like Rehab Group is our partner, and kind of mix them together with, say, corporate. We had Accenture people last year, Nissan was our sponsor last year, Smart Dublin. So you can see they're all mixing together the disability community and the corporate community, and also the startup community. And I think that's really, really important, a part of it. So that's the Friday, and then the teams actually formed. So they're kind of put into groups, and those groups stuck together, which was what we were hoping. So there is a bit more structure to the hackathon. And some people say, traditionally hackathons are a lot looser. But because we have a real strong focus on what we want to do, we want to solve problems, we need to have a bit more structure, which is great. Then the Saturday, it's your typical kind of hackathon setup, where people will actually come in their teams, they'll get mentoring, and that's a really important part of this weekend. The mentors. We make sure we have mentors from the Rehab Group and from various different disability people organizations, and experts from the fields of health, and everyone we need, and all the skills we need in place. And then we have the pitch. So it's it's kind of modeled on maybe a tradition like Google for entrepreneurs, the Google Startup Weekends. But it is, people comment that it feels different, you know? So I suppose, and they also, like one of our mentors, Gavin Nee, commented on it, it was a much more diverse crowd. So we do really try and encourage people who have a disability to join in. It's a good mix of gender as well. So yeah, I think we've really designed, between myself and David, who was innovation pioneer in Rehab Group, we've designed a kind of a unique hackathon. And we're going into our third year. So it is going to be, you know, I think to make a bigger impact, you really kind of have to pay attention to the support activities. And what I mean by that is making sure that people, in particular, people who might have a disability and who might not feel as confident about taking part, who might not have been exposed to the startup community before. I want to do things that kind of build their confidence ahead of that. And to that end, we have launched a community event. So we had our first one in February. We have the next one is going to be in April. And we intend to use those bi-monthly events as a way to bring people into our kind of Hack Access family and getting them used to the terminology. And we're going to do a maker evening, and the community is going to support that. We've got great support by the likes of Colin Keogh, who can help us do that. So that's an important part of it, doing those activities in the lead up to the hackathon. It really focusing our strategy, I guess, is it's inspiring people to join our movement, but then empowering them to actually take part and get as much from the experience as possible.
Right. I know that Antonio has a question. So
yes.
Go ahead, Antonio.
Well, so looking back to the two events and to the fact that we were able to have a group of people that were able to join. Some of them end up there because they were invited, others they were invited by friends, others they just end up there. No, oh, I'm here.
Yeah.
So what do you think it's been the impact of Access Dublin in the community in Dublin, specifically about how they look at accessibility and how they could, oh, maybe when I'm working, I could include the people that are here at the hackathon. I never thought about designing for accessibility. So how do you see the impact of what you did in the Dublin community in bringing these conversations, accessibility, more alive?
Well, I think, to be honest, like I think that's in terms of awareness, I definitely think there's a lot of awareness now about what we're doing. But I would like that to be one of our goals, to really measure that impact, because it is hard when you're one person managing the hackathon, and then, you know, of course, all the teams go away, and, you know, some keep engaged and some don't. So I think at this stage, it's still hard to kind of measure the impact. I know definitely that there is now an awareness, and we see in Dogpatch Labs. It was actually in tandem with International Women's Day. They did an event focused on diversity, and they had me there representing the disability community. And I think that's one piece of evidence that shows that now we're bringing this to the forefront. But we still have a lot of work to do. I think really we're really starting to see that now. You know, I think the first year essentially it was like an experiment. Second year we really proved that, right, this works. And the quality of ideas was super. You know, we have 4 teams there, and the fact that Smart Dublin have now gave a fund to support 3 teams in the data and awareness categories. That's a sign that it's been put on to the radar. And I think that's one of the things that was really important to me, was expose the startup community to these challenges, because, you know, we've got engineers, like basically all the people who are responsible for creating our world, you know, engineers, designers, technologist for the digital world. So it's something I really want to work more on in trying to measure, but I can definitely see the signs, having Smart Dublin now funding the teams and having diversity events at Dogpatch. And I've got a number of ideas how we can build on that. But certainly I think over the next few years, that's going to be something we'll see more tangible evidence of.
Yeah, Janice, this is Deborah. I have a quick question. So I know that not only did, I think it's great that Smart Dublin funded some of the teams. That was amazing.
Yeah.
I also know that some of the award winners that you set them up with mentors. And I know I was one of the mentors and others. But would you mind just talking about a few of the award winners and what they created, what their ideas were?
Yeah. So basically there was 4 teams. So we award a first and second place prize. But the difference in the last year was there was a prize then for data and awareness categories. And so first place, basically, they're called Bump and Bee. And their solution was basically looking at the problem that visually impaired people have when crossing the road, simple problems. And the problem is that even though there's beacons to direct them, quite often the person veers beyond the safe places where they can cross. So they came up with an idea. It's made with this, basically, I can't remember the name of the actual material, but basically a series of bumps that will actually guide them. So either with their feet or a walking stick that guides them safely across the road. It's a simple idea, but I know a lot of people were very excited about that. So that was the winning team. Second team was called Entry Level, and their solution was to do with kind of encouraging. So I suppose it would have been under the social challenge to encourage established businesses in the city to be more accessible. And their idea to do that was a badge system. So they would have a platform that the business would apply for a badge and kind of wear it proudly and kind of educate them about the need to be accessible in a very kind of, I suppose their way was quite colorful and quite vibrant, and there was a real positivity about it. So I guess a badging system for establishments to show that they are accessible, and also an online platform that, so if you were somebody with a disability who was looking to go to a restaurant or looking to go out for a drink, where are the establishments in your area that are open and accessible? That was the second prize. And then the winners in the data and awareness, Able Access is a platform that connects graduates who have a disability seeking employment with mentors and businesses. So that was a key challenge that we wanted to address last year. The actual problems in even finding employers who are accessible, and also offering the mentor piece as well. And then the fourth prize was a startup called Sea Park. The interesting thing about them is that they had actually attended the first year. And obviously they had got a bit of feedback and they worked on their idea and returned. And some people wondered, was that fair? But I actually think to have that level of engagement, again, that speaks to the previous point of, what are the signs that people are embracing this? That's one. And I thought that was quite amazing that they kind of worked away and at the solution and returned to be awarded the prize from Smart Dublin. So basically their solution was looking at the problem of disabled car parking spaces being misused and abused. So they came up with a solution for that. So you can see kind of a very broad spectrum. That's something that we try and do with Hack Access. It is really focused on the environment. We're kind of looking at the social aspects, transport and public realm, which are really important. And the lack of data is another huge challenge. So we added a data category last year. And so we try and have a really broad range of challenges, and then we bring in people who have a disability to give their specific examples. Yeah.
Right. And I think it is good that, you know, the teams come back year
Oh,
after
yeah.
year, because
Yeah.
I think it provides continuity. I would be curious. I know I'll give a shout out to the Atos brand, because I know Antonio was also involved. And so, and he works for Atos. So we'll just give Atos a plug. But tell us, I know you're talking about this from the perspective of startups, and I think that's really good. But of course, we need the big brands to really step in and support what we're doing. We need them to help. We need them to mentor. We need them to sponsor. We need them to be mentoring, you know, the teams and the startups. And so you mentioned that Nissan. Good, you know, congratulations to Nissan, sponsored it last year. This year, you're looking for a sponsor, and you do not have your main corporate sponsor. But I know I know corporations are very interested in hackathons. We see Google doing it, Microsoft, a lot of others. We've done it quite a bit in the US, but sometimes I know people get discouraged with the hackathons because some really good ideas come out of them. And then, of course, they just never can get them off the ground. So, but where is the opportunity for big brands to come and play a part in Access Hack? I'm saying it wrong, Dublin.
There's a number, I really think there's a number of roles they can play. But I think from kind of looking at the research, I mean, I've been reading various reports on what needs to happen. And we know now disability is kind of being put on the global stage as one of, you know, a big societal challenge that has kind of been largely ignored. And all the research is saying the same thing. It needs to be multidisciplinary collaboration. We need governments to work with corporates. We need public-private sector collaboration and innovative responses. So what that means, I think, funding has always been claimed to be the biggest kind of obstacle, it seems, when I've been talking to maybe high level. It's like, oh yeah, we'd love to do that. Yeah, money and resourcing. And I kind of think it's too easy to say that. I really feel like there's money there, right? And there's corporate social responsibility budgets, which I think could be used to support the development of these ideas. I think that's a big thing. Because yes, you say, so for example, we have these 4 teams now, and I mean, the feedback from the mentors at the hackathon, you know, and this is what I need to rely on them, because I'm not from a technical background. So I make sure I have people who can advise me, like Antonio is one. And they were all saying the quality of the ideas was really high. You know, these ideas, you know, they could really make a difference. So we know that. But what we do need is, first of all, yes, we need a sponsor this year. But I really want more than a sponsor. I don't want someone who's just going to give money, you know. It would be lovely to feel like that sponsor is a partner and really believes in our vision and is open-minded about how they can engage, because, you know, this is early days, you know, and I think it provides such an opportunity to really figure things out together. And I'm very open to that. And of course, we do have a workplace challenge, so that's one obvious way that they can engage in a much kind of deeper way beyond giving funds. So I think there's so many opportunities to engage, but I think looking at how we can tap into those CSR budgets to actually support with funding, not just the hackathon, so that takes a certain amount of funding, but also the teams who progress. I mean, one of my big goals, you know, we've proven that the model works, and as a way to bring all these various stakeholders together, that works, and we prove that people in the startup community attend. So what Hack Access Dublin to me is becoming is more of it's a project. It's a cycle of activities that ends up with this hackathon event. But it does a lot more. It really, as I say, that in supporting and the empowering piece. And then, but the follow on, I think there's an opportunity I mean, why not have a, you know, an incubator? Because I think we need to have an idea around what kind of structure we could create to support these teams, because that's the thing, you know, that we really need, and they need to be supported. And I would love to think that there could be, you know, a Hack Access London, a Hack Access Berlin, and if we do have those events internationally, what that means is we can feed off each other, you know. Because what happens is, after a hackathon, you might have a team of 6, and generally speaking, that team shrinks, and maybe there's 2 or 3 people. But maybe if there was another hackathon and they were looking at a similar idea, maybe there's a way that one team over there and this team in Dublin can partner. But for that to happen, I mean, that's down the line. That's talking about a much bigger kind of investment to kind of support that kind of structure. But I really see the opportunity in creating that kind of structure. I don't know what you guys think about that, you know, that kind of idea. But I can kind of see how that would work based on the relationship I have with the teams, and they're looking for support. They're looking to keep going with their ideas, and that's kind of that's unprecedented to me. When I tell people, "Oh yeah, the teams, we're still engaged," you know, it's kind of like a Hack Access family, and they want to pursue their ideas. But I think they need a little bit more support to do that. And if we can give them that support, I think we're looking at really making really solving some problems, you know. And I think that would be amazing.
I agree. And I just wrote a book, it's not out yet, called Inclusion Branding, where I'm talking to corporate brands about how they can do a better job of supporting our community of people with disabilities. And I think this is a really good opportunity for a corporate brand in Ireland to really step up. And wouldn't it be interesting if it was a global brand, which could help take it in other places? So I know that we're out of time, and we definitely want to thank Barclays Bank for their support of AXSchat. And we really, really appreciate your story and what you're doing. You know, in memory of your brother. It's amazing. It's an amazing story. And I want to make sure, Antonio, I want to make sure if you have another comment before we close, and you have your beautiful daughter joining us. So, but I wanted to make sure, Antonio, we gave you another second, and then before we close, we want to make sure, Janice, that you tell people how they can learn more about.
Absolutely. You know. I will.
Yes. So, Antonio, I don't know if you want the mic, if we want to just let Janice tell people more about how we can find out about, you know, the work that you are doing in Dublin.
No, I think we can that will be a good line to close today's interview. I think we can ask Janice to tell us about, you know, the address of the website, the Twitter handles that we will be sharing. We'll also be focusing the conversation this week on hackathons and how can co-innovation help us to improve. To improve and make products more inclusive. So I'll go back to Janice to let her share that with us.
Okay.
Thank you, and thank you so much. I know, you know, with this hackathon, there are a lot of moving parts, so it can be hard to kind of communicate it in a way that's very succinct. So I hope I did that, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share my brother's story, and hopefully. This will be a kind of a legacy for him. But yeah, so just to say that we have just agreed the date for this year last week with Google. So we'll be in Google this year, over the weekend of the 9th to 11th of November. And we hope, Deborah, maybe you expressed an interest in being our keynote speaker. So I'd like to extend that invite to you. And Antonio, I'm expecting you to be there. I won't take no for an answer. Antonio is mentor extraordinaire. And last year you were at the event the whole time. And it was lovely even for me to have you there. So that's great. And yeah, so you can definitely follow us on Twitter at Hack Access Dub. And the website is www.hackaccessdublin.ie. And just to say that we most likely, it looks like we're going to have another Hack Access event happening this year in Sligo. So you can see there's signs there that this is really developing. So that's going to be happening most likely in September. So it'd be great for you to keep an eye on what we're doing. And as I said, if you are in Dublin or anywhere in Ireland or anywhere else and fancy meeting us, we are going to be holding bi-monthly events. So they're going to be held in Dogpatch Labs. The next one is on the 26th of April. So you can register for that via our website. There will be the registration event. And yeah, I think that's basically everything for now. But watch this space. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Janice, for your work.
Thank you, Janice.
Thank you.
Okay. And we will we look forward to everyone to join us this week. Don't hang up, stay there, for a few more seconds. But we would like to say again, thank you to Barclays for their support. We really need to make this conversation inclusive, and they have helped us a lot with that. So thank you, Janice, and see you on Twitter.
Great.
Yes. Bye, everyone.
Bye.